Hey everybody, and welcome to another alt history video. And today I want to talk about what if the communist world had united. Communism has always had somewhat of an ideological split on whether communism should be in multiple countries, each with their own little flavor and twing on it, or whether communist countries should unite into one large communist blob and be run by one government. In our time, the different versions of communism in different countries won out. But what would have happened if they all had united, and when could that have happened? The most likely time for the communist world to unite would be after World War II, when the fall of Germany had happened. Let's say Stalin, wishing to expand his power even further, annexes Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, Romania, and Bulgaria as a part of the Potsdam Agreement with the Allied powers. This would both strengthen and weaken the Soviets immensely. The strengthening of the Soviets would happen because they were adding millions of people to the country after just losing millions of them in the war, and adding all the farmland and natural resources of Europe. The weakening of the government would happen by spreading government agents, military personnel, and government funding very thinly, causing the Soviets to be even further behind in rebuilding than they were in our timeline. And these thin Soviet resources were about to get spread even thinner as this Chinese Civil War was coming to an end. And the communists were looking for that extra bit to push it over the end, which they would get as Mao agreed to join the Soviets in exchange for the Soviet support in their civil war. With a communist victory in China, the Soviet Union would now stretch from Berlin to Beijing. With the rapid rise and expansion of the Soviets from being nearly defeated by the Germans in 1943 to now in 1950 being the largest country in history by a wide margin, the Allies would be forcing agreements with the Soviets, and the Soviets, knowing they had overstretched themselves, would agree to some of these territorial agreements. In Europe, Berlin and Austria had become major sticking points. After some negotiation, the Soviets would allow Austria to unite with West Germany in exchange for receiving West Berlin from the Allies. In Asia, the Soviets would agree to the independence of Taiwan in exchange for the rest of Korea. With the world now clearly split into two spheres, how would this differ from our own Cold War? Well, for one, the colonial empires of Europe would most likely keep control over most of their colonies, some still breaking away, like India from England and Syria from France, but with an even greater fear of a massive communist Eurasia, America would back these colonial European powers. Turning to the communist world, the now massive Soviet Union would have just created for itself a major double-edged sword, now having full control over all of the landmass of basically all of Eurasia, but now being able to expand any more at risk of having the whole country collapse. The internal policies of the new Soviet Union would be one of chaos after the death of Stalin in 1953, only having ruled over the Eurasian Soviet Union for 3 years and having such an iron grip on the political sphere, there would be no clear successor. With Malenkov's position as leader looking more and more unstable, the struggle between Khrushchev, Mao, and Wilhelm Peck of East Germany would intensify. In the end, Khrushchev would inevitably win out after receiving backing from the KGB, assurances from Peck, and gaining the backing of Zhukov. This would, however, nearly break the country in two, as the Chinese and Koreans had felt they had been unfairly brushed aside for the more European leadership of the party. These political grievances would not go unnoticed, and would be met with the swift assassination of Mao and Kim Il-sung in 1955. With this competition taken care of, Khrushchev would begin his de-Stalinization and unification of the larger Soviet Union. Khrushchev's Virgin Lands campaign, however, would not be implemented in favor of modernization of the Chinese and Central European farmlands. The Eurasian Soviet Union would continue modernization and industrialization efforts well into the 1990s, where it would finally hit a turning point. The communist machine was finally starting to run out of steam. The illusions of unity, equality, and brotherhood were all starting to fade, as every leader of the Soviet Union since Khrushchev had been from Russia, and all other positions in government were only ever held by Russians, Ukrainians, and Germans. With the Soviet Union weakening, Gorbachev had hoped to open up the nation to start trading with the West. But, just as the Soviet Union had hoped to open up, Western financial markets had crashed due to the dot-com bubble. With aging technology, unproductive factories, and now no markets for their goods to be sold to, this would see the end of the Soviet Union. Nations would start to break away one by one, attempting to do their own decommunization strategies. And that is where I will leave you all off with today. If you are enjoying the longer video format, drop a like, and as usual, links to Discord are down in the description, and I will see you all next week.